Okay, hello, my name is Nate. This is my Social 315 final presentation. What I've decided to do it on is I wanted to take a critical look on gender in Latine communities. Just a quick word on my vocabulary in this. I wanted to use Latine because in recent years, there's been a big push on a gender neutral term in the Latine community. Um, One of the words that is often used is Latinx. But if you go into these Latina communities and talk about the gender neutral term they prefer, it's Latine because Latine is a natural extension of the Spanish language because you have Latino, Latina, and they wanted to do Latine. So if you go to any of the Latin countries or if you talk to any presenters who are of the Latina communities, they generally prefer Latine versus Latinx. So I wanted to reflect that in my presentation to pay respect to the community itself. So um, before we talk about gender differences, we need to talk about intersectionality. Intersectional identities are the different identities that make up a person. So each different identity you have contributes to who you are as a person. So these different identities are sexual orientation, whether you're gay, straight, pansexual, omnisexual. Um, there's also gender, which you can be male, you can be masculine, you can be female, you can be feminine. There's also the non-binary genders, so you can be anywhere on that spectrum. There's sex, which if you're following the binary definition of sex, there's male or female, but there is also intersex people out there. Ability is an important one because you're either able-bodied or you're disabled. That affects how you have social mobility, um, both socially and physically in society. Race is a big one, whether you're white, black, or native. And then ethnicity. Ethnicity is important because it basically breaks down race into finer sections. So each identity affects the other in certain ways. One way you can describe this is that it's easier for a white man to be gay than a black man because those two identities are interacting with each other. It's easier for a white man to end up being transgender or to change their gender. Versus if you are a black disabled lesbian who's non-binary, you have a harder time navigating the world that you live in. So what I wanted to take a look at is the Latina communities and how they influence gender identities. I interviewed Perla Ochoa Kenner. She is 27 years old. She is a Latina. She is cisgendered and heterosexual. Um, she is the daughter of two Mexican immigrants. Her parents came over from Mexico, I believe in the late 80s. And they had her and her other brothers and sisters. Perla is the first to graduate high school in her family, which is a big milestone. She's also the first to attend university. Um, she's the oldest of four children, and she's also my wife and the mother of my child. So gender in the Latina community is very traditional. Women are often relegated to do domestic work, such as washing the dishes, cooking, cleaning, taking care of the house, taking care of the children. Um, while men, they have a more defined role of they provide for the family. Men are also given the freedom to basically do what they want. Um, so the idea is that women are to be seen and not heard. Women are supposed to be demure, chaste, and submissive to men. And women have very set rules that they're supposed to follow. Perla's father was basically the main enforcer of those gender roles in her home. He was afraid that if Perla did too many masculine activities, whether that be soccer or playing outside or visiting him at work, then he was afraid that it would make Perla lesbian. She would come out gay if she did too many masculine activities. These machista traditions, machista is basically male chauvinist, they get in the way a lot of the social work that's done in Latina communities. So the older generations tend to enforce these roles. Perla talks about how when she would go to church or if she was with family during holidays, that it was usually her father's generation that would enforce the rules, like, oh, sweetie, don't do that. Girls aren't supposed to do that. Oh, come here, help with the cooking, cleaning, do this, do that. Oh, son, you can go play, go do what you want, go do this. But Perla also talked about how younger generations are more relaxed in the gender roles. People her age tend to see men and women more as equals. They believe that husbands and wives are partners and that they should make decisions jointly instead of just having the father or having the patriarch have the final say in things. Um, with I asked Perla about decisions she wanted to make with her daughter, our daughter, um, Isabella. Um, Perla said that there were some gender roles that she would like to enforce. She said she wanted to dress her up in little dresses, put bows in her hair, do the female presenting kind of things with her daughter because Perla herself loved to do that. But in terms of the machista traditions and the gender roles, Perla is dead set on being against them. She wants Isabella to grow up as a woman who's able to make her own decisions. Uh, Whatever decision that may be, Isabella should be able to make that decision herself without the influence of a man or a male. Um, so if Isabella wants to grow up and be a mother, that's because she wants to be a mother and not because it's the role that the Latine community at large wants Isabella to fill. So overall, it was a very interesting conversation. It was very insightful. Um, it did a lot of good to know that there's a split in the Latina community about gender, that the older generations like to enforce it and the younger generations like to rebel against it. Um, the biggest thing about Latina communities, Latinas especially, is they face trouble on two fronts. Something we read about in this semester was how Chicana feminists, they basically had to push for rights in two directions. They had to help the Latina community itself with worker rights and everything, and they also had to push their own rights as women. So Latinos face that trouble on two different sides because they're being discriminated against from American society for being Latina, and they're also being discriminated against in their own communities for being female. Um, Oftentimes, the Chicana feminists who would push for women's rights instead of workers' rights were seen as traitors, or they were betraying their community. They were being selfish because they didn't help the Latina community at large. Something I kind of feel is that American feminism does not highlight Latina problems. And I say American feminism because Bell Hooks defines feminism as the movement to end oppression, sexism, and sexist exploitation. I differentiate American feminism from feminism because American feminism tends to focus on white, straight women instead of other identities. So white, straight feminism, American feminism, it doesn't highlight the problems in the Latina community. Several reasons for this are because some people might consider it racist or discriminatory or prejudiced to talk about communities they do not fit in. Other reasons is because there is still systemic racism towards these groups of people, these marginalized groups. And so what we need to do is we need to go into these Latina communities and we need to uplift them and focus on the rights within these communities. We need to focus on ending discrimination towards Latinas, but we also need to focus in the communities themselves. We need to teach them that patriarchy and rule of the father and all these machista traditions also need to end, that they're not right, and that it's unfair to treat Latinas like this. Um, Overall, I had a really good time uh, working on this final. I really enjoyed being able to uh, interview Perla, and I really liked seeing her insights. And I hope you enjoyed the presentation as much as I did.